In the Legends of Signum, there are 5 game zones: the battlefield, the city, the graveyard, the battle deck, and your hand. Players summon armies and heroes to fight against each other on the battlefield. The battlefield is 60 by 60 centimeters. The city is the bastion of your future empire, where players place constructed buildings and terrain cards. The graveyard houses discarded creatures and cards. The battle deck is a collection of player-assembled cards. The hand consists of cards that have been drawn but not played. Players designate a place for their city, battle deck, and graveyard outside of the battlefield. A hero is a key figure on the battlefield. If your hero dies, you will lose the game. Unlike regular creatures, heroes have bigger health pools, as well as the ability to use relics. The battle deck is a collection of player-assembled cards, including character, spell, relic, and tactic cards. Before the beginning of a match, each player will assemble their own battle deck. When building a battle deck, a player must use cards of the same faction as his chosen hero. Building and terrain cards are separate from the battle deck, but are also chosen by the players. These cards can be played in any order, as long as the player pays the prosperity cost. When a card is played, the player must place it in his own city zone. Only 1 card per type can be activated during a player's turn phase. Turn order is determined by rolling a dice. The first player places his hero's miniature on the battlefield, adjacent to his side of the battlefield. After this, the second player places his own hero at any spot, adjacent to his side of the battlefield. Each of the players gain 3 points of prosperity and draws 4 cards from the top of their battle deck. This is their initial hand. These cards are placed facing your opponent. Once before the game begins, a player can discard up to 4 cards back to his battle deck and draw the same number of cards from the top, or discard up to 4 cards into the graveyard and gain 1 prosperity point per card that was discarded. After this, the preparatory phase of the game is considered to be finished. Players' turns consist of game phases, including the beginning phase and the construction phase. The beginning phase starts the active player's turn. The active player untaps any tapped cards in his city zone. All creatures have an ability that can be activated again. The active player draws 1 card from the battle deck to his hand and receives 1 point of prosperity. He may not have over 10 battle cards in his hand. If the player already has 10 cards in his hand, he must discard a random card to the graveyard before drawing the next one. Construction phase. The active player may construct 1 building per single turn. The building constructed in the current turn can be used right away. Constructed buildings may allow players to play battle deck cards or terrain cards. If a player decides to skip the construction phase, that player gains 2 additional prosperity points. Playing terrain cards. To play terrain cards, players must first place the card on their city zone. Then the corresponding template of the terrain should be placed on the battlefield. It must be placed at a vacant location, out of contact with creature's base, at least S distance from the player's side of the battlefield and other terrain elements, or at least M distance from the opponent's side. Activation phase. During this phase, the player can only play character, spell, relic, and tactic cards from his hand, summon creatures to the battlefield, and play up to 1 terrain card. The player can perform these actions in any desired order. As soon as the active player has completed all his actions, his turn ends and the turn of the next player begins. Character action. During its turn, every creature in Legends of Signum can perform one of the following actions: move up to its movement distance indicated on its card, or initiate the run ability. A creature that already has an XL movement distance cannot take advantage of the run ability. After using a run ability, creatures or heroes cannot use any other abilities, move, or engage in melee combat. If during a regular movement your model touches the base of an opponent's model, it enters melee combat. If an active player's model is in contact with several opponents' models, the active player chooses one target to engage. The number of dice a creature can roll for attack and defense is indicated on the card by its strength value. While attacking Cordelia, Greer chooses to assign 2 dice for an attack and 1 dice for a defense. All Greer's rolls were successful. Cordelia assigned both her dice to an attack, but she missed with one of them. As a result, Cordelia's attack was blocked, and 2 successful hits from Greer dealt her a fatal number of wounds. If a model has armor markers, 1 armor token absorbs 1 point of damage. When there are no more armor tokens left, place wound markers. Shooting. A model must not have performed a move before shooting. Characters with the fast shooter ability are an exception. Before making a shot, make sure you can draw a clear line of sight between the shooter and its target. A line of sight is a straight line from the base of your model to the base of the opponent's model, not blocked by anything. It doesn't matter if you only see part of the model's base or its half. If you can draw a line of sight to any point of the model's base, you can perform the ranged attack. If no line of sight can be drawn, the shooter cannot shoot. Victory. There are 2 ways a player can become victorious in the standard rules of Legends of Signum. The first way is to eliminate the enemy hero by inflicting an equal amount of wounds as the hero's total health points. The second way is to win by prosperity. The first player to accumulate 51 prosperity points automatically wins the match.